All right, welcome everybody. We are we're ending this year with a combined video podcast for you guys. So we're going to see how this goes, and we're just going to kind of talk about things that happened this year, what went well, what went wrong, and things that we're going to try to do differently and plans for next year, and hopefully we can hold to some of those plans. So. For us anyways, in July, every year at the end of the year season, I'm always saying we're going to get out more in the summer. We're going to hang more tree stands. We're going to do all this stuff. But that did not happen for us this year. Busy with work, things in the church, life, just things happened, and we were not able to get anything done. I didn't even move my tree stands from last year, which I really, really wanted to do. Thankfully, we didn't, though, because that's where I killed my buck, was the stand that I was planning on moving. So July and August, we went out, we set up trail cameras, and we're able to get a few deer on camera in velvet. But the only thing was August, September, and then into October, we were getting probably about 1,500 pictures every 2 weeks. So we were checking cameras, about 1,500 pictures every 2 weeks. The deer were daylight and nocturnal. They were moving. But then late October, when harvest came in, right after harvest, it rained steady for a few days, and the creek behind the property rose, and that's how the deer were crossing. And we ended up getting like 15 pictures every 2 weeks after that. And even after the water came back down, the deer activity was very minimal at best. We had a handful of pictures for the most part. A friend of ours that hunts the property, he was able to kill buck and a doe on opening day of gun season, and then Thanksgiving Day, November 24th, I was able to harvest a buck first thing that morning. And so with the private property, though, we knew that it was going to be a dud. So that's when we really focused on the public land.
Well, with public land, first time hunting that public land, I believe. I've hunted before public land with my dad, and I've always kind of had a bad rep of it because it's just, you go out there and it's all these woods. It looks awesome, looks beautiful, it's great, but you never see like anything. That's just how it typically goes for me. So it was a couple of first, as far as like first deer on public land, and then the other was first deer with saddle hunting, and that was kind of a new thing for us. I don't know, we'll probably get into that a little bit, maybe kind of see what Seth's thought is on saddle hunting, your take, whether, I don't know, have you ever saddle hunted before?
I have not. It's
okay.
Always been pricey for me, so
yeah.
I did try some new things this year.
That is the other thing, though. So we technically didn't saddle hunt, even though that we did.
We didn't do it the right way.
Off-brand saddle hunt.
Yeah.
My ribs were
great value brand saddle hunt.
Yeah. So we actually shopped Amazon, and instead of buying a real saddle, we bought like these harnesses. And funny story is, I kind of let JP like buy his gear first, and I was like watching him, seeing like, okay, is this working? And it was.
I was a guinea pig.
And he was a guinea pig. Yeah. So I got my saddle. Well, it's really a rock climbing harness, essentially, with three D rings. I think 3 D rings. We use those really cool carabiners and all that good stuff. Anyhow, so we got that whole system figured out. But yeah, so yeah, it was a good morning. It was kind of an interesting night. Morning rather. Woke up a little bit late because of the drive time with the public land. Have to hurry up and get out there. But anyhow, so we get there, a little bit before 5, I think, right around there.
Yeah, it was right around 5.
Sign in, head out, and long story short, shot a deer from the saddle. So it was a good time. The Lord definitely blessed too. Another thing, takeaway, you always want to, like if you're going to be hunting with a buddy like I was at that time, you want to be at that site or maybe see some pictures of that site. That way you know where to position your platform. Yeah. As well. Also, I do highly recommend buying some form of platform when you make your whole saddle hunting system.
Most of them do.
Don't make your platform. Buy a platform. It's worth it. I know it's a little bit pricey, but it's worth it. Anyhow, so yeah, it was great. So it took us forever to get up in there, and once I got up there, got my platform set up. The issue I ended up with was I had never seen the woods before, personally, like from the ground point of view. And so my shooting windows I couldn't really see until by the time I'm done and set up or whatever, like real well. And so I'm actually positioned very poorly. So it was like I only had one shooting window because knowing how you can shoot and stuff, whatever. So the Lord definitely blessed that day because the deer came through that buck came through that shooting window. It was like out of all the places he could have gone. It was pretty neat. But anyhow, yeah, it was a pretty good time there in public land. Another thing, public land hunting, you want to keep in mind they may have it draw only for firearm season, and that may save you some gas money.
Yeah. With his deer hunt, one thing that I'm taking away with it is, one, really test out your gear, because when we went in, we had climbed trees with our stuff the weeks prior, and we'd gone up and down, up and down multiple times the trees here at the on the church property, but when we got to that specific tree, we had a terrible time getting up. We didn't get all set up until after it was light. So thankfully the deer didn't come in for another few hours. But that was one thing that really took us away, because it took us a couple hours getting all set up since it was our first time saddle hunting. Another thing is make sure your cameraman is able to video properly, because if he's not, then you don't get a clear shot of the deer when he gets shot, and then you're stuck wondering, did I make a good shot?
Can I say something on that? Okay, so I will say this. I do have a rule that I'm not going to risk missing a deer for getting good footage.
Right. Oh, yeah.
So,
well, 2018 is a perfect example of that.
Yes.
Goliath comes through, and I couldn't get the camera on in time in self-filming and self-hunting. Well,
that's hard to do when you're self-filming.
And I couldn't get it working. And so what happened was I had the lens. Another tip, keep your lens open. Anyways, I had the lens cover shut on that JVC camera.
Yeah.
And this big monster, the biggest deer I've ever seen while hunting, comes stomping through. Back when I still shot crossbow. We'll bring you over to the other side. Don't worry.
He's already over to the other side.
Oh, you are?
Yes,
yeah?
He is.
Okay.
Thanks to his wife.
Awesome. All right. Okay. Sorry. So I had to forget the camera and take care of the buck. But yeah.
That's the one thing that we've always said is, when it comes to the deer hunting, yes, we love to get stuff on footage. We love to be able to share that with family and friends and everybody on YouTube. But feeding the family comes first. Enjoying the hunt with other people comes first. I've done times where I left the camera at home and I went hunting with family. I just you know what? I'm not worried about filming. If we see something great, if we don't, whatever, I'm just going out to enjoy the time in the woods. But with Josh's hunt, I was not focusing on my duties as filming it. And
you about fell out of the stand, I think. It's a good thing
thankfully
you had that
harness. In a harness. So when he shot his deer, he thought it was a bad shot. I thought it was a good shot.
I was right.
When we start tracking, we were both right. I mean, when we start tracking it, it was one of the best blood trails I've tracked on.
Yeah.
But we tracked that sucker for over 500 yards, and it was
a little bit too low.
Yeah, it was just a little bit low, and I've never seen a deer run like that with that amount of blood loss. But yeah, he ran over 500 yards. It took us until he shot at 9:45 that morning. It took us till 5 o'clock that night to find it. So it was the longest track job I've been on. But thankfully it ended with a good recovery. And then also, not only watch your camera views, but be physically ready and mentally ready to haul out the deer. Mm-hmm. If you're going to carry it between you and a buddy or just you, be physically ready. Or be mentally ready and have a cart or a four-wheeler or something to be able to drag that out, so you're not making yourself, because we had to haul that thing out for over a mile. Yeah. And so that was. Did you not have
the stuff to quarter it up and stuff, or?
No, I didn't have the quartering bags. I didn't have a deer cart. It was a long trek.
And so just for future reference for you or whoever's listening or however we're doing all this, but the whole, where you see the old picture of like two Indians with a stick
With
and the deer in the middle.
That's
I've
all.
always thought, man, that is so cool. That's probably the easiest way to carry out a deer. It is the worst way to carry out a deer.
Just put it over your shoulder and walk it out.
That actually, yeah.
That works.
No, for real.
The
If you have good knees,
Have you seen that?
No.
So there,
if you don't have bad knees,
on you guys, there's
Over
a
the shoulder
there's a
works
video on YouTube that these guys show of. I think it's an old way. Someone finally brought it back, but of able to make your deer into a backpack where you make a certain cut on the
You
on
put
the
the
hog
legs
and
together.
you put the legs. You kind of fold the legs.
Yeah, okay, I
And you
have
make
seen
your own
that.
backpack out of the whole deer.
Yeah.
And
like the feet come up here and here.
yeah,
Right? Yeah,
it
I've
works
seen that.
great. And I had watched that like the week prior, and I just totally forgot about it. And by the time we got back and everything, and I'd seen the video again, I was like, man, we should have done that.
yeah.
There's
It is-
nothing that
it is
reminds you
easier.
how much out of shape you are until you have to drag a deer.
That's right. That is totally correct.
It doesn't matter if it's big or little. It doesn't matter. Like
Yeah.
Amy's deer, for instance. So, do you want me to just go ahead and talk
Go-
about
yeah,
our season?
yeah, go
Okay.
ahead.
So our season was really weird because I used to hunt on my Pap's farmland for like most of my life. And then God just brought some new opportunities that we moved 2 hours west in Pennsylvania. And I didn't have anywhere else to hunt. Near where we live, there is 1,400 acres of state game land, rolling mountains, streams, and all that. But I didn't really feel like hunting all that because, okay, bow I could probably get away with, but rifle season in Pennsylvania it's a nightmare because everybody and their cousin hunts. And I've even had it where a couple years ago I was sitting, and it was opening day, and a bullet hit the tree sitting next to me, and I'm like, that's it. I'm not doing opening day anymore. So I will not hunt opening day of rifle anymore because there's so many idiots that hunt.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
so yeah, it was very scary. Like the tree is like I heard the shot and I saw the deer and it like hit the tree next to me. I was like,
Did you hear like that whiz? You know, how, like your army vets and stuff talk about that like noise. You hear like a whiz or a whistle
yeah,
or whatever.
it was like slow motion. It was it was super
Be
scary.
careful. He has PTSD, hunter's post-traumatic stress disorder.
Right. So, so I started working at this Christian school. I'm on the maintenance team there, and one of the guys is like, "Oh, I told him about my YouTube channel because we talk about hunting and stuff. Because I sit with the high schoolers and stuff." And he's like, "Oh yeah, my dad has 80 acres up about 25 minutes away." And he goes, "If you want to come hunt, you can come check it out this weekend." So I went and checked it out. Beautiful. It sits up next to state game land. That's 130,000 acres. Couple valleys. It's perfect. So they have a couple different food
Make us
plots.
jealous.
Yeah, just a little bit. Y'all need to come.
We're not
over.
moving to Pennsylvania.
Yeah, hey,
man.
It's too north.
Hey, you can get non-resident tags. And I hadn't hung any stands, any cameras. Didn't know much about this property. Just went and walked it a little bit. And so we set up a 2-man down on this really cool. It's a plateau, and then it cuts down into a valley, and it's kind of flat, and then it cuts down into a creek below us. And there's the hill in front of us is like, it kind of reminds me a lot of like Texas brush country. Like it's like small thickets, waist high grass, small shrubs, and there's hardly any like tall trees. It's beautiful. The deer loved it. And I saw 3 bucks in there this year, all shooters, and they were like chasing each other, all out of bow range, of course.
Of course.
And then disappeared at rifle season.
Right, yeah, of course.
But we go out there opening day, October 1st. Amy was gonna hunt because she's never killed a deer with her bow, so I'm like, all right, you're gonna be up first. So opening morning, it's also the day of a hurricane that was coming through, and I'm like, we were debating about going at all, and I looked at the radar. I woke up like 2, 3, 4, and I'm like, okay, well, we got a range from 4 to 3. I was like, let's fit it in. So we went, and I brought my crossbow just for the fun of it in case a doe or whatever showed up after she shot her buck, because I was like, we're not going to leave till we shoot something. Yeah, about 8:30, she looks at me, she's like, when are we leaving? She's like, it's getting cold. I'm like, it's 50 degrees.
Just got light.
Yeah, right? I was like, it's only 50 degrees, but the wind chill, like a super wind, so it's probably like 45 is the wind.
Oh no.
So it wasn't that bad.
It wasn't no -30, right?
Right? So I was like, just you wait till November,
Yeah.
I was like, we'll give it another hour and then we'll leave. Because early season, once it gets past 10 o'clock, it's pretty much pointless. As soon as she said that, we look up and there's coming from that hill was a 6-point, a spike, and a little button buck. And I'm like, watch this one. Like, they're going to come close, I hope. So they came down, cut over, and I had my rangefinder, which that was a dumb idea. I should have had her with the rangefinder instead of me because, I was just had the camera. And I was like, hey, they're 15 yards. So she pulls up, but for some reason, she just couldn't get it pulled back. And I'm like, all right, take your time. You know, he wasn't scared or anything. He was just feeding there.
Because it's 80 pounds, right?
Right, yeah. So she finally like took a breath and then got it back. And she shot, but I forgot to coach her before she shot that. She was aiming like you would at a target, like right on. I said so afterwards I was like, hey, you should have aimed a little bit lower. But so she aimed, and as soon as she punched that trigger, it jumped it, and it went skimmed right over the back. And I was like, no, like I thought she had maybe nicked it just the way because it mule kicked. Yeah. So I was like, oh, so she must have nicked it, but I didn't see any blood. And it only took 2 steps. After it, like, mule kicked and like took 2 steps and then just stopped and like turned around, flicked its tail a little bit, and just kept back to feed. And I'm like, are you serious?
That's the one thing I love about archery is you can shoot,
and they don't know.
If you miss, they have no idea. Or you could shoot one, it takes off running. The rest of them were like,
oh yeah,
just happened.
What's this bucket too?
Yeah, there's another dude that just hung out forever.
Yeah, and the spike buck and the button buck didn't move at all. They just kept eating. And I'm like, well, I was like, I don't know if it's injured or, you know, if it just missed. I was like, but I'm not letting this buck slip away. So I just turned around, grabbed the cross gun, and just took it out right behind the shoulder. And it.
Along with your camera. Oh.
No, I got it on camera. And hit it behind the shoulder. It ran up 200 yards and fell down. So that was nice. Did not expect to shoot it, though. Like, I didn't come prepared at all for me to shoot. A couple weeks after that, we went park, and a small doe came out, and basically Bambi's child. It was really tiny. But I was like, you know, it's the first deer, you know, you can take a shot. She's been dying to shoot it, so I was like, go ahead. It was 30 yards. Well, what she didn't know was there was a tree limb sticking out a little bit, and she pulled the trigger, and it tipped the tree limb, but she hit it. Like, you heard it hit. It sounded like it was hitting a rock. Like, it was a whack. I'm like, well, she hit it because there's blood everywhere, and the deer like half rolled, half slid down this hill like this steep. It was super steep. And so I called my buddy of mine that owns the property, and we went and looked for it. Blood everywhere. So we go hike down this trail into state game lands up by a creek, and there it was, just crowed up looking at us and like blinked a couple of times. Like, oh, it's still alive. I was like, you got 2 options. Walk over there with your knife and slit its throat, or take a follow-up shot. She's like, I can't do the knife. I was like, all right, shoot it. So she pulled back, shot it. And of all the places she could have shot, she nailed it right in the gut. And so we drug it up. Do what?
I said, how come you didn't?
Because I don't want guts.
Guts right there.
That's like the guts. Like, every time we drug it, more guts came out. I'm like, nah, I'm not picking it up. Yeah. And it's funny because we started out with 3 flashlights and ended up with 1 phone flashlight at the end because all our flashlights went out. We did not come prepared. Make sure your batteries are charged.
And multiple flashlights.
We're learning a lot of lessons here.
We are.
I mean, you guys are. From what we've learned.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Between the 3 of us,
hopefully we learn them, and next year we don't repeat them.
Yeah.
So then I had 2 doe tags left to punch out, and there's this hay field right next to a cornfield right where we pull out to leave, and there's a nice strip of woods that separate the corn from the hay field, and then there's a clover field next to it too. So I'm like, I'm going to put a stand in between them because every time I leave, there's 20 does in this hayfield every night. So I'm like, if I put it back far enough, I'll catch them coming in. So I set up there. I went out there probably like lunchtime one day. 5 o'clock, party of does come walking through the cornfield. I'm like, oh, I got this. And then they get about 35 yards and stop. And the lead doe just like looks around. And she's like doing that whole nose thing where they're like checking everything out. Yeah. And she like starts stomping. I'm like, oh, good grief. So then she turns and starts walking back into the corn. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I'm going to try something. So I had a can call with me. I was like, let's just try it. So I did the can call. All of a sudden I hear her poke her head back out of the corn. And she comes all the way out and looks at me. I'm like, right where my chin. I'm like, oh, great. I was like, well, the nice thing about a cross gun is you don't have to pull up and pull back. You just, pull up like a gun.
Right.
So I pulled up. And another life lesson, know your surroundings. I pulled the trigger, and when I looked through the scope, I was like aiming right for her center cavity because she was facing me.
Right.
But like sometimes, like, you know how when you look through your scope, it like blurs everything that's like close to you.
Yeah.
There was a tree limb. Tree limbs were my enemy this year. I pulled the trigger, and she mule kicked too. So I'm like, oh, I nailed her. Like, I'm texting Amy, like, well, we're gonna have doe tonight and all that. So I go look, found my arrow covered in doe hair, but no blood. Yeah. So I followed her trail, and there's more hair, but no blood, and I ended up seeing on camera the couple days later, she was still kicking. There was a clump of hair taken out of her chest.
Yeah, wow.
So I just shaved her. Fast forward to rifle season, I was in the same stand. Bike and 4 does came out. And so it was getting close to dark, and pretty much same thing happened with the bow. I took the shot. It was 250 yards, clipped the tree limb, and missed her completely. And yeah.
You shot a deer with your bow at 250
No, gun.
yards?
It was gun. I said, fast forward to gun season. Fast forward to gun season. It was my 243.
He needs a Hoyman.
I need a brush gun. I should have brought my old 30-30 and just blew the whole tree over.
We got 2 of those Hoyman expandable. They're 17-foot long tree saws. They're nice.
Yeah, I was like, next year I'm either moving that tree stand up farther or I'm just going to cut some limbs down. Fast forward to the last day of gun season, I took my 2 cousins out. One had been hunting but never seen anything. He always hunted in public. I mean, this kid, their family is not good with guns. His brother put in a shotgun shell backwards and ruined his dad's gun. This cousin went out hunting and
I don't know.
He sat down so hard and his gun went off. So they don't have a good track record with guns. I was like, come with me, you'll see deer. So the other cousin had never been hunting in his life. So I set him up with my buddy that owns the land. They went somewhere else, like a couple miles.
Out of gun range.
Bong out of gun range. So then I'm like, cousin, I was like, you're staying with me. I was like, you just stay with me, we might see something. So he hunted with me, and I found this great cedar thicket going with a stream going in between it. I said, we're going to sit up on this ridge, see what happens. 30 minutes, a nice, either it was a big 6 or a small 8. I couldn't get good footage on it, but I knew enough that it was legal. So I look over, his gun's leaning up against the tree. He's leaning against the tree, texting on his phone or playing video games or whatever on his phone. I'm like, come on. So I text him, I was like, dude, buck, big buck. And I look over and I see him. He's like, where? I'm like, right there. And he like, look.
Starts the conversation. Where? There. Where?
Like on the phone, like you could, like it was a full, probably 5-minute conversation about where the buck was. I'm like, just get your gun ready. And he's like trying to like sneak his gun, and it fell over. I was like, oh my goodness. Deer didn't see it or hear it, so that was miraculous.
Yeah.
And so he got his gun ready. Nice 6.5 Creedmoor. I'm like, oh, he's gonna smoke this thing. It was 22 yards away. I was like, this thing's down. Game over. So it was coming towards him. Well, then it started to go up the hill. I'm like, no, you need to stay here. So I doe grunted at it, and it stopped, and it started coming back down again. Gave him perfect broadside shot. He pulls up, and I knew that morning. I saw him load a shell in. Pulls up, shoots, and the gun just clicks. I was like, what? So he's like over there, like trying to fumble to reload it, and the deer like heard the click clearly, and it looked, switched his tail, and went up the hill. Well, there goes the season. So we ended the season with a 6 point and a doe, which wasn't too bad, but plenty of bologna in the freezer now. So
that's right. Yeah,
it's all that matters.
Right. Yeah. It was on private land. I had been coordinating with the guy that lives there by the property, that hunts there, and just kind of figured out.
Same first name. It messed me up when he was talking.
Yes, his name's Seth too. Okay. So we're talking on the deer we're seeing on camera, kind of what time and all that, and I know this area was good because it was right near a good bedding area, right where they crossed. And I was like, there's got to be something in there. And so we went back in there and scouted a little. And I'd had my stand hung there from last year. And we had a buck come flying in on November 6th, all fired up, ready to fight. And we just, he saw us just before I was about to shoot. If he had taken like 2 more steps, I would have shot. Yeah. I mean, he was like 10-pointer. Oh, beautiful, man. Beautiful deer. Beautiful. So we knew this was a good area, but every time I'd taken my dad out there last Thanksgiving, actually.
The time before, I had a buck come in. I was full draw on him too, but 2 consecutive pins. But yeah.
So we had
different tree.
Yeah, that was a different tree. But all the deer that I had seen, they'd come in and they had either cut down into this bedding or cut up, and they're just too many trees. We got in there pretty early. Got all set up. And just as you're just starting to see. Yeah. We're hearing deer move, And Josh, so how we're set up on the tree is one stand's facing this way, the one stand's facing this way, both hanging on.
Oh, and you asked me for my saw first before
the
deer came.
So when it was starting to get light enough, I was looking at the different trails, and last year I knew I needed to clear this one shooting lane out, and I didn't. So he's got the extendable saw. So I had him hand me the saw, and I extended it all 17 foot of it to be able to get to this branch, and I was just about to start cutting when I heard something. I was like, that just ain't anything. So I just kind of look behind, and a lot of times you hear the squirrels, and you think it's a deer.
If you're in the woods long enough, you know the difference.
Right, but then when a lot of times when that squirrel comes in, you think deer. Yeah. But when the deer come in, you know it's a deer. Yeah. You're not thinking squirrel. You know that's a deer. Yeah.
You just have that feeling.
Right, you do.
Because they have like that pause, whereas the squirrels are more like consistent.
Jump. Yeah, like when they walk, they kind of like even hang the one leg up, like leave it and stuff.
Yep.
It is, and so I knew that was it. I was like, get ready. So I'm elbowing him. I'm like, take the saw. So
I was on my phone.
Yeah, he's holding the saw and filming with the phone.
Oh, word. Now, is this bow or gun?
Bow. I don't gun hunt anymore.
Okay.
I bow hunt only. Just because where I hunt.
The advantage,
but also
it's
where
different.
I hunt. The farthest shot is maybe 50 yards. Yeah. Furthest. It's like there's no point in having a gun.
Well, and people think that you have more advantage with a gun, but you have more like location options with a bow too.
Right. Oh yeah.
You can be like 100 yards from my house and still kill a 12-point buck.
Right.
You can do urban hunting a little
easier. Urban hunting. Like that's the one thing I wanted to do this year was get into urban hunting, and then just time. Yeah, like the summer was non-existent.
Go hunt a golf course like Sequence.
I know this deer is coming in, so I'm getting my bow ready. Josh says he had seen a doe off on the. So we're right by the property line.
We're tag and couldn't make out what it was.
We're about 50 yards from the property line, and so he had seen a deer run across on the other property. And then I spotted this one coming out of that bedding area, and he was coming up onto the hill. So I'm peeking around the tree. And he's coming out, and he's about 35 yards broadside. And I've got my bow, and I'm like, I never hunt without a harness.
Yeah, I don't either.
I never hunt, because I know too many people that are paraplegics now are dead because they fell out of a tree. So I got this strap in the way, and I'm trying to get around it, and I'm thinking about leaning back with the strap off the tree to shoot. And I couldn't
That would have made great footage.
Yes.
Or like push off the tree and like
jump, bam. Yeah.
And after you release, you just
right.
Edit that part out.
Right.
We leave it.
So, but I just couldn't get this shot. And thankfully he turned and went. He was going this way, and then he turned and kind of angled back. So there was these tree branches in the way, and so that last time we hunted in that stand. And had a deer that close come in was that one buck on November 6th that busted us. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And what it was, he was just about to clear these branches, and he looked up and he spotted us, took off. And so that's the one thing that's playing in my mind is this deer's going to spot us. Because there's it's a bare tree. Yeah. There's nothing until up above us. So, but he comes in, and just as he's about to clear these branches, he does this number. And I'm like, no! And he just looks at us for a second and then just keeps going. I was like, yes! So he comes down that trail as he's clearing the trees, and he's stepping down into this ditch. And that's when I stop him. And he was 18 yards. Yeah,
nice.
And I drilled him. Yep. And I shot and I did this. Shot. It was a minute after legal shooting light. Yes!
You can see the sunrise as the camera goes up.
Cool.
I think it was like 7:34 or something like that. And legal shooting light was 8:04 or something. I mean, it was a minute after legal shooting light.
Nice.
And ever since 2018 was when I shot my first doe here. And I just had normal arrows.
Here it comes.
And the Allen 3-blade from Walmart. It killed her. But it took us over a half hour to find first blood.
She bled good though.
Yeah, she did. She bled like it was a paint bucket just dumping down the trail. But finding that first drop, it took us over 30 minutes.
That's why I don't like rifle hunting as much.
Right.
I like it because you can reach out there, but it's hard finding that first blood.
Yeah.
Because I missed a doe. So the one that I talked about, I missed her. But the last day, or the day before the last day, I had a buck run out in front of me and then a doe at 5 yards, and I drilled her. But I think what happened was when I pulled the trigger, I jerked to the right a little bit, and it went a little far back than I wanted it to. Yeah. And it took me an hour to find blood. Yeah. And then when I did find it, it was very sparse. There's some on a tree, and then I just followed it, and then as soon as like a couple minutes after I shot her, she ran over the hill, and then I heard another bang, and I followed the blood and saw a neighbor carting her off.
Yeah.
So
okay, so he got it.
That's shot placement is.
It is very key.
Very key.
And another thing, with that doe especially that I shot, was remembering where she ran.
Yeah,
because I started following this trail, or at least trying to find a trail, and I'm looking in the completely wrong direction.
Yeah.
And because she turned it, because when I shot her, she was broadside, but it was 27 yards, so she had time to turn, and I drilled her right above her shoulder, and it went down. Never found the arrow. Yeah. Just one hole. Drilled her, and she turned and took off and kind of skirted the trail before coming back. And when we finally found the blood, we were able to find her. But ever since that one, we're looking at the footage and we're like, okay, where's the arrow impact? I think it's here. I don't know. Yeah. Ever since then, I put lighted knocks on my arrows. Yeah. Because it's the easiest thing to be able to see that arrow hit. And the thing is, you go to Walmart, the Nocturnal brand is $30 for 3 of them. Yeah. It's like, there's a 50-50 chance almost that I'm going to lose that arrow after I kill that deer. I don't want to spend $10 for a little something on the end of my arrow. I mean, now I do spend a good amount on the broadheads, but
right.
Yeah.
Hey,
so
you get a discount, right?
Right.
Sure.
Rec broadheads, everybody. Yeah. Rec broadheads. Go find them. They're absolutely amazing.
We recommend the fixed blades.
We recommend rec broadheads.
Yes, I had issues with the expandables twice this year.
FX4.
I couldn't get
for rec broadheads. We would suggest if you had where you can just snap it on, like be able to lock them into place.
What's the technology called? I can't think of it now. But
instead of like a band, because sometimes the band breaks or whatever.
Both of my expandables broke, and I couldn't get the band back on, so I just went and bought fixed braids.
It took me about 15-20 minutes to figure out how to put all that back together to reset.
It wouldn't lock into place for me. I guess I
don't know if you read the instructions since you're a guy.
That's fair.
I ended up having to pull out the instructions like, okay, and there's a certain one side is different than the other. It's a little bit longer, and you got to do it just right, and you got to hold your tongue, and the wind has to be just right. Yeah,
I just went and bought the fixed ones, and it works a lot better.
Yeah, I mean the fixed. I mean it's been proven.
Now do you guys
the expandable they work too?
Yeah, they do.
If they, the only downside is that. Sometimes they
that and you never know. Sometimes they don't open too. I've had that issue too.
Nate's buck, years ago.
But that wasn't with Rick Broadhead.
Yeah, but it's true. It's true.
Clarification.
But, you just have that. Anyway, where we're now.
Sorry.
The lighted knocks, because especially with that deer, but deer that I've shot in the past, lighted knocks have helped 100%. I know where that arrow hit. Yeah. And like especially on this buck, it was real dark. Yeah. It was light enough to see. It was legal, but it was still that dark where if I had just shot a plain old arrow, I would never known where I would have hit that deer.
Yeah.
Go ahead and play that.
Yeah.
So he's going to play the video on
check
YouTube.
This
Go
out.
ahead.
That is really dark.
So there's the buck. Come stomping through there.
Coming through the branches.
You nailed that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
that's cool. That's really cool.
But then you can hear it crash.
Wow. What did he do? Fall down a hill?
No, he just fell over into the weeds. Well, that is it for tonight. Thank you all so much for watching and listening on the podcast, whoever will be listening. It's been a blast this year, and we're excited for next year. There's a lot of plans put in the makes, and we're going to try to see what happens. So, Seth, thanks again for stopping by and
good to be
having
here.
us on the podcast tonight.
Hey, no problem.
Appreciate
Thanks for
it.
being my
Yeah.
guest and my host.
There we go. Hey, that works for us. So, anyway, thank y'all for joining, and we'll catch you on the next video.